Good afternoon, members of the media. Good afternoon, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. I was forced to call this news conference this afternoon at the ministry's head office, unfortunately, to respond to some allegations and misinformation that was put out in the public domain at the UNC's Sunday press conference, weekly press conference, that unfortunately is used as a platform to spew misinformation, lies to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I was informed that yesterday, 2 members of Parliament of the UNC appeared before their weekly press conference, MP Moonilal, and I can't recall who is the other member of Parliament. And at that press conference, several items and matters were raised. But specifically, I am here to respond to some of the lies, the misinformation that were put out in the public domain by the Member of Parliament, Mr. Roodal Moonilal, particularly concerning the restructuring of the Water and Sewerage Authority. But before I respond particularly to what he said at yesterday's news conference, I wish to preface my presentation in this particular way. I was elected as Member of Parliament for the constituency of Lopino-Borneo West on August the 10th, 2020. Shortly after I was elected Member of Parliament, I was appointed by the Honorable Prime Minister as Minister of Public Utilities in the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. I took my oath of office as a government minister, and shortly after, I took my oath of office as a Member of Parliament. And why do I say this? I say this because as public officials, as elected members of Parliament, we all take an oath of office to be truthful to the people that we serve. And therefore, when I speak in my capacity as Minister of Public Utilities, being a member of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and when I speak in my capacity as a Member of Parliament for the constituency of Lopino-Borneo West, I owe it to the people and the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago to be very truthful in what I say. Not only as a member of the PNM government, but as an elected member of the Parliament of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And therefore, every elected member of Parliament is expected to conduct themselves and their public affairs with dignity, with honesty, with truthfulness. Because what we say and what we do is under intense scrutiny, and the citizens who are listening to us must not be doubting what we say. And therefore, the manner in which the Member of Parliament for Oropouche East conducted himself at yesterday's news conference, it is very unfortunate, and it is a dishonor to his oath of office and his duties to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Secondly, when I was appointed as Minister of Public Utilities, the Honorable Prime Minister asked me to chair a cabinet subcommittee to look into the operations of the Water and Sewerage Authority and to determine a strategy for enabling the authority to achieve its mandate. As a young minister, newly minted minister, elected to the Parliament, I was asked to chair this cabinet subcommittee, and the Prime Minister gave me a mandate to complete a report with recommendations to the cabinet and to him with recommendations. On December the 11th, 2020, this report was compiled and it was completed and submitted to the Honorable Prime Minister and the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago. I do not wish to regurgitate the findings of this report. I do not wish to regurgitate and to rehash the recommendations that are contained in this report. But I can say that whatever is contained in this document can stand any scrutiny. Any scrutiny. And when this report was compiled and submitted to the cabinet, the Prime Minister, acting as leader of the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, gave a firm instructions that this report is to be laid in the Parliament of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago so that every single citizen and every single sitting member of Parliament can understand why the Water and Sewerage Authority is not discharging its mandate to the people of Trinidad and Tobago to provide clean, potable water and wastewater services to this country. Not only that, but this report was also submitted to a joint select committee of the Parliament, and it was also subjected to robust scrutiny. The findings and the recommendations of this report, members of the media, no one took objections to these findings. All of a sudden, we hear of people and political figures doubting that WASA has a management structure comprising 426 persons. When this report was laid in Parliament, members of the UNC, opposition members, did not take issue with it. The union representing WASA workers did not take issue with it. As a matter of fact, when the findings of this report were placed in the public domain, one major union leader, I think it is the leader of the Seamen and Waterfront Trade Union, and when he was asked about the findings of this report, you know what he said? His response to the media was that you cannot blame workers for what took place inside of WASA. You have to blame the managers and management for what took place in WASA. This particular trade union leader, not taking any issue with the findings of this 2020 report, has placed the blame of the state of the authority before the feet of the management of the Water and Sewerage Authority. The government just did not come up with a plan out of a hat, a transformation plan to transform the authority. The government started this journey by looking deeply into the operations of WASA, compiled a comprehensive report with recommendations, laid it in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, and when it was laid, in a statement that I made to the people of Trinidad and Tobago through the Parliament, I indicated to the people of Trinidad and Tobago that the government has also mandated that another cabinet subcommittee to be chaired by the Honorable Penelope Beckles-Robinson, Member of Parliament for Arima, that she will chair another cabinet subcommittee that will be responsible for working with the Board of Commissioners of WASA to come up with a transformation plan for the authority arising out of the recommendations of this 2020 Cabinet Subcommittee report. This government has been at work for well over 2 years to transform the Water and Sewerage Authority and to ensure that all of us, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, all of us, can have an authority that can provide reliable and sustainable water and wastewater services for all of us. There is no location in Trinidad and Tobago that does not have a water challenge. It is not circumscribed to geographical location. It is not subscribed to politics. If you go to Tobago and Diego Martin and Laventil and Toco and Sangre Grande and Matlot and Manzanilla and Las Lomas, Pinal, Siparia, Southwest, Point Fortin, Labrie, every community has some issue with respect to water supply. And the government has decided that we need to look at the operations of WASA and ensure that that utility company is restructured and transformed in such a way that the people of Trinidad and Tobago, regardless of race, color, or religion, or geographical location, can have a reliable supply of water. It's as simple as that. The government has looked at the amount of money spent inside of WASA over the last 10 or 15 years. I indicated that over the last 12 years, the government of Trinidad and Tobago spent over $25 billion. You have now in Trinidad and Tobago, where the head of the PSA is saying that the government starved the Water and Sewerage Authority for resources to create a platform to demonize WASA workers and to demonize the authority. Nothing, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, could be further from the truth. The reality is that the government has spent $25 billion in the Water and Sewerage Authority, and what we continue to see is declining levels of service all across Trinidad and Tobago. And we have decided as a government that we are here to solve the problems and the difficult problems confronting the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And oftentimes, some of those decisions can be very painful. But as a country, we have to demonstrate that we have the capacity and that we have the courage to even make painful decisions for the greater benefit of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And that is what we are confronted with at this point in time. Having to make difficult decisions, but being confident that at the end of the day, we as citizens of Trinidad and Tobago will all benefit from a reliable water supply and a utility company that has the capacity to provide water and wastewater services to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And that is how we intend to go about our business to defend the interests of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. But the transformation of WASA and the restructuring of WASA is not a 2022 initiative or the first time that the government has attempted to transform the Water and Sewerage Authority. I would have said 2 weeks ago that there were 2 major attempts at the transformation of WASA with no resultant positive impact for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. The last time, before 2022, a government decided to transform WASA was in 2013 or 2012, when the UNC government, with a UNC CEO in the name of Ganga Singh, approached the IADB for a loan. And one of the conditionalities of the loan was that the UNC must make an attempt or an effort to satisfy the conditions of the release of funds for the authority. This is what the IDB has indicated to the UNC government, that in an effort to satisfy the conditions for the release of funds for the authority was mandated to develop a strategic organizational restructuring plan so as to rationalize its staffing. And in that regard, the UNC government was mandated to restructure the authority to ensure that it is a fit-for-purpose organization so that it can deliver upon its mandate. And the reason for that is because the IDB was well cognizant that should billions of dollars be continued to pump in the operations of WASA outside of the transformation of the utility company, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, who would now be indebted to repay the IDB for years to come, will not see and experience an improvement in their levels of service. And for that reason, the bank had indicated to the UNC government that it had to engage a transformation and a restructuring strategy for the authority. And in so doing, a transformation plan was prepared and submitted to the IDB, and that was one of the conditions that the government of the day had to satisfy in order to get access to funding. And I want to quote from this March 27th document, dated March 27, 2012, in a letter signed or addressed to Mr. Ivan Cayetano, Water and Sanitation Specialist of the Inter-American Development Bank, 17 Alexandra Street, St. Clair, a document signed by Mr. Ganga Singh, Chief Executive Officer. And this is what he said, and I quote in a paragraph of that letter. The systematic analysis of the problem of overstaffing and its solution is crucial to the financial viability of WASA. Again, let me say, and I will read again. The systematic analysis of the problem of overstaffing and its solution is crucial to the financial viability of WASA. In fact, WASA's viability and financial sustainability are inextricably linked to the organization's manpower levels. The proposal outlines a rationalization plan so as to ensure that the goals of operational efficiency and financial viability are achieved. Just one paragraph in that letter. Yesterday, we would have heard Roodal Moonilal boasting that when the UNC was in government, a Murray poll suggested that it was one of the best performing utility company and that WASA had achieved a 74% increase in levels of service, thereby increasing the levels of service to 24/7 for 74% of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. If a utility company had achieved 74%, 24/7 levels of service, voted as the best performing utility company, I am to ask Mr. Roodal Moonilal, why your chief executive officer in the name of Ganga Singh was telling the IDB something completely different. Something completely different. In other words, complaining to the IDB that WASA was overstaffed. It is not financially viable, and in order for the organization to be sustained, there must be a staff rationalization process. The letter, it goes on to say as follows: the proposed timeline for the reduction of staff is as follows. In 2011, the staff level was 4,634 employees, and we intend to reduce that in 2012 by 3,915. By 2013, we intend to further reduce staff by 3,209 employees. By 2014, we propose to reduce staffing levels to 2,625 employees. By 2015, this number will be further reduced to 2,345 employees. This document dated 2012 is a document signed by Ganga Singh, Chief Executive Officer of the Water and Sewerage Authority, and approved by the government of Kamla Prasad Bisesa. Appendix 4 of that letter forecast manpower levels by worker category. This is what they indicated to the IDB. The forecast manpower levels by worker category. Category 1, executives. The existing manpower level at December 2011, 35, to be reduced by 15, a 57% reduction at the executive level. At the managerial level, by December 2011, it was 256 managers. The forecast manpower level reduction for managers in the Water and Sewerage Authority was from 256 managers to 37 managers, a reduction of 86%. At the technical officer level, a proposed reduction from 2,002 employees to 1,466 employees, 12% reduction. Very interesting, ladies and gentlemen. At the administration level, in December 2011, current level at that time was 2,443 employees, to be reduced to 377, a proposed reduction by 85%. And by 2015, the staffing levels should have been 2,400 employees. Arising out of that, the UNC government received a loan from the IADB to the tune of $396 million so as to commence the restructuring of the Water and Sewerage Authority. And by 2015, as opposed to having a staff level of 2,400 employees, the staffing level was further increased to 5,000 employees. And the people of Trinidad and Tobago now has to repay a loan of almost $400 million to the IDB. And had the UNC government stuck to the task to transform the Water and Sewerage Authority, ladies and gentlemen, the very difficult chalice that is before the government of Trinidad and Tobago at this day, and before the Minister of Public Utilities, would not have been. And perhaps we would not have been undertaking a very difficult transformation process, but we would have been utilizing monies to continue to improve water supply to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. The UNC government, having failed and having received hundreds of millions of dollars to restructure the organization and to ensure that it is a fit-for-purpose organization to deliver upon its mandate, has failed to do so, and now it falls upon the government of the day, led by the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, and a Minister of Public Utilities supported by his cabinet colleagues, to undertake a very difficult transformation so that the people of Trinidad and Tobago can get an efficient supply of water. Secondly, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Moonilal boasted that when the UNC was in government, the people of Trinidad and Tobago received a 24/7, 74% of the population received a 24/7 levels of service. Again, it's a big lie. It is very unfortunate that my honorable parliamentary colleague would parade himself before the population and spew lies and lies and lies, tissues of lies at all different levels, and hoping that you, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, will not know of the facts, and the lies that they repeat on a daily basis will become the reality of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. But as a government and as a minister, being responsible for the transformation of WASA, I will not allow Roodal Moonilal, Barry Padarat, Anil Roberts, and Wade Marks of the UNC, all purveyors of lies and wickedness in this country. And if I have to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to hold a press conference, to respond to their lies, to ensure that the people of Trinidad and Tobago are not fed by tissues of lie on a daily basis, I am more than prepared to expose them at every single level and at every single turn. Members of the media, I have the data before me with respect to the levels of service from 2013 to 2022. The same Moonilal boasting that the UNC government achieved 24/7 levels of service to 74% of the population. This is the truth. In 2013, the level of service of citizens receiving 24/7 water supply was 37% of the population. In 2014, it was 51% of the population. In 2015, it was 53% of the population. 2016, it was 42% of the population. In 2017, it was 46% of the population. However, something strange happened in 2014, that even though the level of service was 51% In 1 month, which is the month of December, a strange occurrence took place, that in the month of December 2014, the level of service, or the amount of customers receiving 24/7 level of service, was 70%. And by January 2015, it went back down to 42%. And they hired a communications consultant who took this 70% level of service that was only recorded in the month of December 2014. And they crafted a campaign, because the following year, which is 2015, was a general election year. Took this 1 month level of service that nobody could explain inside of WASA, of 70%, and used that to mount a devious and a lying campaign to brainwash and condition the minds of the people of Trinidad and Tobago that during the reign of Kamala Persad-Bissessar, between the period 2010 to 2015, the UNC achieved a level of service of 70%. 24/7 level of service, 20%. It is nothing but a tissue of lies and a certain manner of conduct on the part of the UNC to repeat lies over and over and over again, not caring that the documents that are archived in all of these state agencies and at the ministries can simply and easily expose them. They continue to repeat their lies, hoping that you, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, will believe what they have to say. In addition to that, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Moonilal proceeded to say that today there's a backlog of 50,000 leaks on WASA's distribution system. 50,000 leaks. I have been very transparent to the public with respect to the backlog of leaks in WASA, and I indicated to the public on numerous occasions the plans and the strategies that we have in place to address the leak backlog in the Water and Sewerage Authority. When I came in as minister, the leak backlog stood at 5,000, right over 5,000 leaks in the system. And because of the strategies and the interventions that we have made, utilizing internal resources and the subventions that we receive from the Ministry of Finance, I can tell you that the leak backlog was reduced by 2,000 leaks. Thereby, at this point in time, there's a backlog of just under 3,000 leaks, with a program and a strategy in place so that by the end of September, we expect for that backlog to be completely wiped out. So today, ladies and gentlemen, again, exposing the lies of Dr. Moonilal, who claimed yesterday that there's a leak backlog of 50,000 leaks. Nothing could be further from the truth. And the truth is that there is a current leak backlog in the Water and Sewerage Authority of 3,000. And by the use of external contractors, we intend to eradicate that backlog by the end of September down to 0. Dr. Moonilal proceeded by making devious, lying allegation that the government had entered into secret arrangements with a Canadian company to restructure WASA, and that they have signed a non-disclosure agreement with a Canadian company. I was flabbergasted when I heard that. This is the same government, this is the same Minister of Public Utilities that laid bare a 2020 Cabinet Subcommittee report in the Parliament of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago and leveled with the population at every single opportunity. And he's now alleging nothing resembling that the UNC had ever engaged in when they were in power. We leveled with the population and we told the population the state of affairs. And why would this government, after doing so much over the last 2 years and leveling with the people of Trinidad and Tobago, with the state of affairs of WASA and how we intend to change that and to transform and to restructure the organization, why would the government now enter into some secret deal with a Canadian company to sign a non-disclosure agreement with respect to taking over of WASA. Ladies and gentlemen, another big lie by the UNC. Another big lie. The Member of Parliament proceeded to make the allegation that the Ministry of Public Utilities is training 50 managers right now at NAPA or another facility in Port of Spain with the objective of taking over the management of WASA, alleging that the Ministry of Public Utilities is currently training 50 managers at NAPA or at a facility in Port of Spain to take over the management of WASA. It was only last night, ladies and gentlemen, in a meeting that I had with some members of the board and senior management of WASA, I learned that the OJT program assigned 50 OJT trainees to the Water and Sewerage Authority, as they have done with other state agencies and ministries. And 50 OJT trainees joined WASA recently to undertake and to undergo some training program to set about their career and to develop themselves. And those trainees are now deployed in several departments, getting guidance from senior managers inside of WASA, and hopefully at the end of the year or 2 years, they'll be well poised to get employment within WASA or to be deployed in any other agency in the public sector or in the private sector so that they can gain employment to take care of themselves. I don't know whether Dr. Roodal Moonilal was referring to those 50 OJT trainees. But again, ladies and gentlemen, it shows you how reckless and irresponsible and immoral members of parliament can come before and parade themselves before the national community, desecrating their oath of office, blatantly lying to the people of Trinidad and Tobago with the hope and the expectation that you, unsuspecting citizens, will believe their tissues of lies, and to get the impression and the belief that what the government is engaged in at this point in time in the transformation of the utility company, that the government of Trinidad and Tobago has some ulterior motives. Again, let me say it, and let me repeat it. Dr. Roodal Moonilal and the UNC continue to practice the politics of lies, lies, and big lies. Member of Parliament proceeded to also say that WASA has already, or the Ministry of Public Utilities already has 200 manager trainees to assist with the taking over of WASA and to bring in party hacks and bring their own friends and their family, and that the aim and the objective of the government is the privatization and to put WASA in the hands of private ownership. Again, there is absolutely no truth to these allegations. They are unfounded, they are reckless, they are evil, they are malicious, and they are intended to stop the government from engaging in a very important national exercise for all citizens, including their own constituents, to ensure that we have a utility company that can provide water for all the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. I am more than prepared to respond to the UNC if the UNC has any policy alternative to what we are doing for the Water and Sewerage Authority to transform that organization. I will expose their lies so that you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, will fully understand and be on board with us to transform the authority. But we will not allow Roodal Moonilal and his lying cohorts in the UNC to continue to manipulate or try or attempt to manipulate the minds of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago to give the impression that the government has some ulterior motives other than to provide the people of this country with a reliable water supply and wastewater services. Ladies and gentlemen, it is very unfortunate that on this Monday afternoon, that this news conference had to be called to debunk all the lies of Dr. Roodal Moonilal. But it is necessary because it is important that the people of Trinidad and Tobago at all points in time and at every level of this transformation exercise will be on board with the government. And I wish to give the undertaking to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago that as long as I continue to hold the office of Minister of Public Utilities, nothing will be done in secret. And I will level with the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago at all times during this transformation process, because as a member of Parliament, my constituents are stakeholders, and they depend on the transformation of WASA so that they can get an efficient water supply. The people of Tobago are depending on this exercise, a successful outcome of this exercise. The people of central Trinidad, in south, in east, all along the east-west corridor in Port of Spain, all of us are invested and rather vested in the successful transformation exercise of the Water and Sewerage Authority, because for 60 years we have talked about transformation and nothing major was done to bring about true transformation. But on this occasion, I can tell you and I can guarantee you that the government of Trinidad and Tobago, given a mandate by the people of Trinidad and Tobago in 2020, will carry about its mandate to transform the utility company for all our citizens. And we will not be distracted by the lies, the abhorrent lies, the reckless lies, the maliciousness of the UNC and their cohorts to disrupt this transformation train from moving. We will transform the utility because it is the right thing to do. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister, and members of the media. We are open to take your questions, and as we observe the usual protocol, just identify your media house, and you can pose your question to the Honourable Minister. Thank you.
I think I was very comprehensive.
I'll go first, right? I'm sure we have a question or two. Jesse Ramley from CNC3. You would have articulated your points quite clearly, so I think it's pretty easy to digest, right?
Yeah.
But I want to dial back to something that you had mentioned in reference to that initial loan taken out by the UNC 2012, 2013, thereabout. If the particular terms and conditions of that loan with the IDB weren't honored, and clearly it wasn't.
It wasn't.
At the end of that, the figures increased.
That's
right?
correct.
Were there any penalties that we could have faced? Are we facing the penalties right now?
Well, the reality is that when I came in as minister in 2020, and I started briefing myself on the state of affairs of the authority and putting this report together, because one of the best things that ever happened when I came in as minister was to undertake this exercise, because that was the exercise as a young minister of government coming in for the very first time in politics. It gave me a good opportunity to look at the operations of the organization, and part of the documents that would have been made available to me was the conditionality of that loan from the IDB. And it was for the very first time that the government of Trinidad and Tobago learned that this loan was taken out to the tune of $390 million to restructure the organization, and nothing was done. Whilst it may not have legal consequences or civil liabilities against those persons who would have been responsible for this very unfortunate act, I am certain that it damaged the reputation of the people of Trinidad and Tobago and the country before the eyes of international organizations like the IDB and CAF. And I can tell you that I have had several discussions with IDB and CAF with respect to getting financing to fund certain capital projects to improve water supply in Trinidad and Tobago. And they are very cognizant of this reality inside of WASA. And based on the conversations that I've had with them, they are very careful that in moving forward to lend any assistance to the government of Trinidad and Tobago in the water sector, that this does not repeat itself.
And you may not be able to state categorically, but do you think you've been denied any access to funds so far because of this situation?
I will not say that we were denied access to funds, but what I can also tell you is that they make it a little bit difficult for us to get access to funds unless they are satisfied that the projects and the plans to improve water supply in this country will indeed result in an improvement in the water supply to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So one of the things that they continue to put forward is consultants to examine what we are doing in the water sector in WASA, to examine the capital proposals that we are putting forward, and so that they can make their own individual assessment as to what we are proposing to do will indeed result in an improvement in the supply of water to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Because they recognize hundreds of millions of dollars were spent inside of the water sector, in this country, and it has not yielded levels of service across the country that are satisfactory, not only to the IDB, but to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And I can give you an example. When I came in, we undertook a small PSIP program that we all know as the CWIP, or Community Water Improvement Program. We've spent over $35 million. It's a PSIP program under the Ministry of Public Utilities. We have undertaken successfully 35 projects in communities across Trinidad and Tobago. 35 communities. Many of those communities had got water for the very first time. Many of these communities benefiting over 100,000 citizens by just $35 million. We managed the projects carefully with a combination of managers from the Ministry of Public Utilities and WASA. We stuck to our timelines and deadlines, etc. We tightly managed the resources, and it resulted in many communities getting water for the very first time. And yesterday we had Roodal Moonilal boasting that the UNC spent over $1.something billion in the water sector to improve water supply. But I can tell you, yes, they spent $1.something billion in the water sector. Most of the projects were laying pipes all over the country. You could ask the member for Siparia about Gangasik laying pipes all over the country. Has that resulted in an improvement in the supply of water? I can tell you, when I came in, most of the plants around the country have not been refurbished or rehabilitated over the last 15 or 20 years. So where was that money spent? Where was that money spent? $300 million was spent in a Caroni pipeline project, dueling pipeline project, running a pipeline from Caroni, from central Trinidad to South Trinidad, $300 million. And I can tell you today, not one bucket of water was poured into that pipeline. And when the PNM came in government in 2015, all of these contractors that worked on some of these projects that he talked about, the government was owing these contractors hundreds of millions of dollars. But hundreds of millions of dollars cannot be accounted for. And all of these matters are currently under serious audit. But he would not tell you that. Any other questions?
Anyone else?
So, thank you.
Just permit me to just dial back to a point you had raised back in April, right? You had said that WASA intended to embark on a water audit in a bid to reduce the country's reliance on the South country.
Yes.
All this that is taking place with WASA right now. What is the situation with that particular audit that is supposed to take place?
So the audit is actually going on right now. It is being funded by the IDB, and we are looking at the Caroni water treatment plant, south trunk line, the north trunk line. We're looking at the Hollis system, water coming out of the Hollis system, as well as Navet and North Orupuch. And we expect to have that audit completed by the end of the year. But whilst we await the outcome of that audit, I can tell you that we have designed a comprehensive capital investment program to improve water supplies all across Trinidad and Tobago. And I intend over the next week or two to submit a comprehensive note with that capital investment program to the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago to get approval so that we can have access to the appropriate funding. We are in touch and in communication with CAF as well as the IDB to get loan financing to undertake some of these major capital projects. And we believe that by this time next year, the country will start experiencing an improvement in their water supplies all across the country because we are strategically rolling out these programs. What we are doing first is identifying communities that are getting water supply under 3 days a week, 24/3. Because you have communities getting 24/7. A lot of communities, as a matter of fact, it was only reported to me recently that based on some of the interventions that we have made under the Community Water Improvement Program, when I came in as minister, the level of service, you had 34% of the population receiving a 24/7 level of service. Today, based on some of the interventions that we have made, that number has moved up to 51%. So we are trending in a very good direction based on some of the small interventions that we have made. And depending on how we roll out our capital investment program and how we intend to roll it out, commencing with the PSIP and the development program in the new financial year, we expect, based on the strategy, that by next year, at the end of next year, approximately 70% of the population can have access to 24/7 levels of service. We have identified some ground and surface water sources in the Sangre Grande area. We have identified some rich well fields in Las Lomas, Freeport, Penal area to increase the water production in these areas. The same for parts of Point Fortin and as well as Labre. We have identified some rich groundwater and surface water sources in Tobago. And we intend to utilize the modular water treatment plants that can be easily imported into the country and strategically deployed in some of those areas that are experiencing some serious shortage of water, especially during the dry season. And we intend to utilize that approach because that approach has been successfully employed in developed countries all over the world, and we intend to pursue that in order to bring about increased levels of service all across Trinidad and Tobago. And all of these things will be done in a very transparent manner. So thank you all very much, and I appreciate your sincerity and I appreciate your patience and your gratitude and everything else for coming to this news conference so that I can have the opportunity to speak to the people of Trinidad and Tobago on matters that were placed in the public domain that were laced with lies and misinformation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The stage is waiting